everyone, so Avengers Infinity War has opened. It's been a few days. People have had the chance to go see it. I've actually got to go see it 2 times. So it's finally time to stop and do some spoiler talk about this event movie. Now, before I start diving into the movie, let's just kind of talk about how big of a movie this is. As of right now, it appears that this movie is going to have the biggest opening weekend of all time. Previously, that had been Star Wars: The Force Awakens, that had opened to $147 million in the United States. And it looks like, at this moment, Avengers is going to be at $250 million, which is just huge. We knew this movie was going to have a big opening, but I mean, the previous best of the MCU was the Avengers with what, 207, 208, somewhere in there. And so then just kind of knocks that out of the water. And The Force Awakens was a Star Wars movie after a 10-year gap. So the fact that this one could even compete on that level is just really amazing. It's got about an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of going up and down, but right around that mid-80s point, which is normally great for a movie. But given that how many MCU films are over 85%, it feels actually a little bit low for it to only be there. Audience are largely loving it. But there's definitely its critics. There's people that don't like the ending, don't like the CGI, feel that it just feels like a promotion for the next movie, feel it's actually a 2-part movie without a conclusion to it, which I would heartily disagree with. So it's been very interesting to watch all the discussion going on all about this movie right out of the gate. We are in the middle of an event weekend for an event film that people are going to be talking about for a long time and possibly debating for a long time. Was it as good as the hype? Was it worthy of the buildup? Or was it a big disappointment and half of a movie? And I don't think its legacy will really be fully established until we get that sequel coming out a year from now. As I go into all this is going to be podcast style. I'm not going to do any cuts. I'm just going to do one take. If I flub any words or anything like that, it's just what's going to happen in this one. I want to have a little bit more fun as opposed to trying to be more rigid when I do my proper reviews and I try and get takes right. This one's just me, my personality, hit record for 20-25 minutes talking about a movie. You get to see what I'm like. I'm also not going to do all the production value and some of the stuff with all the clips and everything. This one is all about talking about ideas, you sharing your ideas down in the comment section. So I needed to do a little bit simpler because I'm a little bit worn out from doing all the editing from the MCU ranking, which was quite exhaustive, and I got some big rankings coming in the near future. So before I dive into my final thoughts, be sure to start telling me down below in the comment section your take on it. And this is your final warning. This is a spoiler video. Comment section, all spoilers are allowed. So if you haven't watched the movie, don't watch this video. If you haven't watched the movie, don't go in the comment section. You are almost out of time because I'm going to get started spoiling things in 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. So my general impression of this movie after having seen it 2 times is exactly what I said in my non-spoiler review. I saw it a second time and I just held up 100%. Everything I said, I was like, yeah, that's about right. The things that probably bothered me the first go around probably didn't bother me as much, and maybe the things that stirred my emotions worked a little bit better. And some of the things like the ending and Thanos sitting there on a hillside made a little bit more sense. So maybe it was a little bit better, but not in a way that I would up my score or anything like that, just of the ways that movies tend to make a little bit more sense when you see them a second time. I just thought it was great. With these big event movies, generally speaking, I leave them being like, that was awesome, but having a little disappointment or a little something about my kind of reaction to it that I felt I didn't get everything I wanted out of it. Like even The Force Awakens, that was one that I really liked. Maybe a favorite movie of that year. And then I still left it being like, I wish I would have gotten this. I wish I would have gotten this. This is a little frustrating. I wish that, and I had a bunch of things like that. With Infinity War, I didn't have any of that. Going through the movie, in the middle of it, I was thinking, they're pulling this off. I like what they're doing. I like this journey that they're taking me on. I like the way the characters are divided up and that we're seeing everybody. And then it got to that ending and you used the Last Jedi comparison. I was not one of the people that's crazy about the chances they took in The Last Jedi. I was all on board with the end of this movie. When they showed what happened, I was first watching, I was a little bit confused on he snaps and then it goes to a weird vision thing. But then second movie, all that was fine. It's established in the movie. Everything that happens at the end of it, they have a conversation or two conversations earlier in the movie explaining the ending and what's happening. And so then when it happened, I was like, they were subversive in a good way. They're used to being kind of nerfing deaths a little bit. They're used to things not having the stakes the weight it should have. And they went for it this time. It has the stakes. And without question, they're going to undo a bunch of this stuff. Black Panther's not going to stay dead. Spider-Man's not going to stay dead. These are their franchises. This is their future. If you look at the way they ended it, that with our original Avengers still standing, they're going to undo this, and maybe some of them die in the process of doing all that. But just in general, I mean, I loved what they did with this ending. I didn't have any criticisms of the ending itself at all. I love the character interactions, all that fun stuff. So that's my general impression after having watching it 2 times. And also, speaking of who dies and all that fun stuff. So I did a video a couple weeks ago talking about who lives and who dies, my predictions. And as has been pointed out to me by roughly 7,000 people, I was wrong. I was very wrong. And actually, if you watch my video, it's almost like if you reverse it. Of the people I said were safe, they weren't safe. The people I was like, they're going to die, almost all those people lived. And I think that's mostly for now. I think if you look at where they're going to have to go in the next movie, and all of my rationales still stand long term. It's not like the MCU just made a movie where they killed their future, that they just kind of like, all right, we could print money with Black Panther 2, or we could kill him off. It's not going to stand. Something's going to change drastically in the next movie. This movie establishes time travel, different reality. It's all the different things. They put all the pieces in place for them to undo things. So even that when people are like, you were so wrong, I was like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, let's think long term here, where all of this is going, and it changes things a little bit when you think about it that way. All right, from there, I'm going to start diving into the movie. That's my general kind of thoughts on things. Going to talk about the opening of the movie. Going to talk about the main body and kind of talk about a lot of things in the main body. That'll be kind of my junk drawer, and then I'll dive back into the ending once again there. And then at the very end, I'll really talk about the bad. I don't want to kind of go good, bad, good, bad. I'm going to talk through things and touch on them, and then I got some general bad things I'll talk about, try and talk about the good all throughout the whole thing, because it's almost all good and then some general bad at the very end. So we'll kick things off talking about the opening to the movie. So we start things off, and it picks up almost right, or it picks up with the post-credits scene of Thor Ragnarok, which is Asgardians flying through space. Thor shows up, and boom, our movie kicks in. Thanos has just destroyed the Asgardians, and just right out of the gate, the movie kind of sets the dire stakes in how powerful Thanos is. So you just see Thor demolished in ways that we have not. We just saw him get his eye poked out and have a tough fight, but he wasn't this demolished in that movie as he is here. And then you know, Loki's like, well, we've got a Hulk. Hulk runs out, takes on Thanos, and we just see Hulk demolished in a way we've never seen the Hulk demolished, just establishing right out of the gate how powerful Thanos is, at the same time as an issue that we'll kind of get into throughout the movie and in my bads. Thanos seems awfully powerful and Hulk seems awfully nerfed, like especially kind of these side characters and everything. The bad guys seem really powerful when they need to be, and our heroes seem leveled down in a ways that I don't think they needed to do it as much as they did. Thor gets crap beat out of him. Oh yeah, Loki has his soft spot moment. He seems like, no, you can kill Thor, and he starts crushing his skull with a thingy and poking it in the head, and then Loki gives in and like give a real powerful Loki depthy performance to it. Gives in like, I'll tell you where it's at, and you see that he actually does care about Thor in all of this. So Hulk gets beat up, and there's this moment where kind of things shuffle a little bit. And right before Idris Elba gets killed, gets one final spell, and sends Hulk to Earth, which is kind of our inciting incident. That would probably be the thing that's closest to an inciting incident, is he gets shot off to Earth to warn them, as well as the ship getting destroyed with a signal being placed, which leads the Guardians into it. All this kind of sets our narrative in motion pretty nicely, the way the journey of the story flows. So he gets sent off, and Thanos is like, go to Earth, and Loki's like, hey, I can be your guide over there. So tries to sneak up, stab Thanos, doesn't get away with it. Oh yeah, and then we killed Idris Elba, and then Thanos kills Loki. So right in the first 10 minutes, 2 deaths, and these are ones that feel like they're not coming back. These are legit people killed, and by assumption, all the Asgardians are blown to pieces, and so Korg is blown away, Valkyrie's blown away. So we're kind of assuming that way more people died as well. But once again, just establishing, no, this isn't fake deaths. We're not nerfing this one. Thanos kills people, and it is brutal, brutal, brutal. So this leads me to one of my specific negatives in the story, which is the intro. I think the beginning is a great opening to the film, a great sequence, and set things in motion nicely, establishes tone, stakes, all that fun stuff. Here's my big problem with the beginning of this movie, and it's the Alien 3 problem. If you've ever heard me talk about the movie I hate the most, it's Alien 3. So what happens at the beginning of Alien 3? It undoes the victory of the previous movie. And at the end of Aliens, they get away, and Sigourney Weaver's gone through a great fight to save Newt and Michael Biehn, and they get in their space pod and they fly off into space. And then the next movie picks up after this victory, and people are just dead. The people that we just saved have died. And then we pick up, and there's other things in it. That's the beginning of this movie. That we have this big victory in Thor Ragnarok. They did it. The Asgard isn't just a place, Asgard is a people, and the people leave on a ship victorious. I guess we'll head to Earth. And then instantly all of that victory is just destroyed without being seen on screen. It's not establishes a new story. It's just like, all that victory you had, it's gone. They're dead. All that stuff fighting at the end of it, trying to get on the ship. Carl Urban jumping out, shooting so that they can take the guys out so the ship can none of that matters. Everything that happened in that has no actual weight to it because it doesn't matter. All of them died anyway 5 minutes later, 10, maybe it's a week later, maybe it's a month later, but events in the scheme of their life, the next thing that happens is that they die. And I hate it when movies do that. This movie didn't bother me as much because they'd established Thanos before. There's a reason that tied into a new story, so it wasn't as much of like an Alien 3, you've ruined a movie for me. But it really undermines the Thor Ragnarok for me as a movie. Like when I watch that movie, I'm thinking, they're all going to die now. It just cuts the legs off of that movie when you do something like that. And so that in a certain sense, that's probably my biggest issue with the movie is that I hate it when movies do that. Like I just hate it when you start a movie off in a way that damages the end or the victory of a previous movie and you just undermine what happened. Undermine the emotion that was stirred by they did it. Oh, nope, they didn't. They're dead anyway. So anyway, that's my thoughts on the intro to the movie. From there, we'll move on to the journey of the movie. Hulk gets thrown through space, lands on Earth, right over there, which conveniently lands right there in Doctor Strange's home. And so they see him go get Tony Stark. We learned that Tony Stark's got a wedding coming up very soon. But we still got this banter back and forth with Pepper as he won't quit. He won't quit. He can't stop going back into action. And like he's feeling this need, like I can't let people die. I know I can't help, so I have to, which is such an enormous arc for Tony in certain ways. Like they've been building this throughout these movies. And to get to this movie where it's like literally he cannot stop himself from helping people. From where he started 10 years ago, that is such a story arc that can be established in so few lines. And then in this movie, you just see it so quickly as he does not hesitate to do what he needs to do in the movie to help people. But we'll get to that in a little bit later. So he teams up, they go and meets Doctor Strange, and I love that they teamed up Tony Stark, the original totally arrogant Avenger, with Doctor Strange, our new totally arrogant character. And you've got Doctor Strange, this character who's like the only person that can go totally unfazed by Tony Stark's arrogance and confidence. And he's just like, won't have any of it at all. And it's just trying to put him in his place. And they're just going at each other. I loved all of that stuff. And it's just right to his face. Douchebag. Just goes for it. That was just amazing to me. Very quickly after they get there, we get a little exposition dump catching us up on the Infinity Stones, if you don't remember what was said in Guardians of the Galaxy. And then right out of the gate, we get straight into the adventure. The children of Thanos show up to come and grab that Infinity Stone. And there's no pause. Like, rewatching the movie especially, I was like, this movie is just moving fast, getting everything going. And we have this amazing action sequence in the street that has, like, it has almost as many heroes in it and cool things to it as the Avengers, the original Avengers. It's not as big as that, but you've got big creatures with incredible powers. You got 2 sorcerers. You got Iron Man with an extra cool suit. And you got Spider-Man joining into the mix. Now, you don't have Hulk joining in because I guess it doesn't really say what's going on with Hulk. It seems like my takeaway was that Hulk was afraid after he got destroyed, and Hulk is like, I don't want to die, so I don't want to do that. And Hulk, being emotionally immature, that's his response. No, I won't come out because you're going to make me fight that guy and I don't want to lose. That was my takeaway, and I could be totally wrong. Go ahead and tell me in the comment section, was that your takeaway or not your takeaway? But so that goes down, and they have this big gigantic fight scene, and it ends with Doctor Strange being taken away. And we got Iron Man chases him up there, and Spider-Man accidentally kind of chases him up there, just following orders, and decides to kind of stick around, and they go off into space. And so then we pick up, we discover that as Guardians are blown away, they put a distress signal out there. Guardians of the Galaxy find Thor, and this just seems like such a fun group of people to be the ones to find Thor out in space, because you just get the humor of all these characters, their cluelessness, and his just bravado alongside them. So many great funny lines. It was like the child of a pirate and an angel. Just all of that fun stuff. Absolutely amazing. And just giving all the Guardians a funny moment in there, a great line, putting all the just stuff in place. I love what they did with all of that. Then we go back to Earth, and the children of Thanos are hunting down Vision to try and get his Infinity Stone. And so you get some real nice character moments with Wanda and Vision trying to establish a life for themselves, separate, doing their own thing. Tough luck. There's some bad guys coming to try and take that stone out of his head. Second time in the movie, and we're pretty early into it, feels like characters are underpowered because these characters show up, take on 2 of the most powerful Avengers that have Infinity Stone power. And they of course have a spear that can take Vision out. Scarlet Witch is like throwing them around and shooting them and stuff. But it just feels like that she's throwing them. She's not doing terrible large amounts of damage to them. So Scarlet Witch flies off with Vision down the road, crashes into a train station. Children of Thanos show up. They're coming in there. And suddenly some other people show up. Ta-da! It's Captain America and his rogue crew of heroes. And now our rogue group of heroes seem overpowered. So Scarlet Witch, with her Infinity Stone powers, is just like pushing them around. But Scarlett Johansson, with her sticks, is beating up these powerful aliens trained by Thanos. That seemed a little bit like our power levels are off. This will be a recurring theme throughout this review. Take them out, and so then they leave, and we get our Earth storyline kind of picks up from there. From there, I'll kind of go to more generic talks on some of the different things that we do. So our team, Thor and the Guardians, decide to go in a couple of different directions. A group of them going off to take on Thanos, and a group of them heading off to get Thor a new weapon. And even in kind of where they went with that, I thought, worked really nicely to have the people that have the passion for Thanos there together, and then Baby Groot and Rocket with Thor trying to do, Rocket teaming up Rocket and Thor was just fun because you get to see this other side to Rocket where it's not like he's like suddenly a nice guy, but he feels like he needs to be the good captain to Thor riding along with him. So he walks up to him and starts like, hey man, what's up? And they have actually some good heart-to-heart moments in that. And you get a good side to Rocket, especially coming off Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where he made some bad choices that caused the problems in that movie. And you get to see kind of a better side to him here. And Chris Hemsworth acting here, I just thought was phenomenal. Because he's there and he's just tired, worn out, broken in despair. But he's trying to do his, I'm Thor, I'm strong, I'll be a hero. And he's talking about things and you just look at his eyes and they're the saddest eyes you've ever seen. He's an absolutely broken person over having lost everything. Talking about having lost everything. And the only hope that he feels he has is getting a new hammer and killing Thanos. And he's confident he can do that. At the same time, just destroyed by everything that happened. And it's like, it's all just Chris Hemsworth brilliance in his ability to emote that many emotions while talking to a raccoon that's not there. It's a man in a green suit sitting there trying to talk to him as a raccoon. And this incredible performance out of it. So love that kind of adventure that they go off on. I'll kind of speed through that one a little bit. So they show up to this forge and Peter Dinklage is a gigantic dwarf that I thought the CGI wasn't necessarily great on. It looked a little bit off. It never fully bought into it. But even in the way that this was established, I loved the way they tied the whole MCU together in single lines of dialogue. So why on earth is Thanos finally being able to do all of this and get this gauntlet? Why is it happening now? And you just get this one line of dialogue where Peter Dinklage goes, you were supposed to protect us. And he says that to Thor. Thor's like, Asgard was destroyed. We were in chaos. And so this event in Thor Ragnarok that you just think it's about Asgard and what's going on with them and their personal stuff, because of that, Thor's not protecting the universe. Because of that, Thor can't protect this forge that's very important that the wrong hands don't get a weapon. And because of Thor Ragnarok happens, because of all the chaos involved in that, Thanos is able to attack this forge without anyone stopping him, without anyone being warned about what's happening, and gets this gauntlet that can hold all the Infinity Stones. So then Thor has to fire this bad boy up. He's as confident as ever, as crazy as ever. Sorry about that. Has a star shot through him, gets fried, is almost dying. And then we're sitting there kind of waiting, and Groot, who's just been awful the whole movie because he's teenage Groot that just wants to play video games, walks in, decides to join in, and Thor's new hammer is part Groot. But does he get his hammer in time? We'll have to find out. We'll come back to that later on in our movie. Jump back over to our Wakanda. We'll kind of set up there for us. Steve Rogers goes back to the SHIELD base. Actually, we're not to Wakanda just yet. Goes back to the SHIELD base with Vision. And, of course, Thunderbolt Ross is a moron and so wants to make everything about his ego in arresting these people that he wasn't able to arrest before because they escaped. And War Machine just shuts him down. And he's like, all right, I guess I'm done with the military. Goes full Avenger, joins up with his team of people. They go to Wakanda to prepare for war. And we will pause to try and get Vision's stone out of his head, knowing that they need to be a place where they can also prepare for war. Then we'll go back to our Guardians of the Galaxy, which will kind of set in motion a few more of our storylines. They go to confront Thanos at nowhere, where the Collector possibly is at, trying to get one of the stones. They show up. Drax behaves like Drax, won't calm down, and is just angry. This is the day I'll get my revenge. They go in for it, and then it turns out Gamora goes in to stab him, stabs Thanos a couple of different times. He's like, why would you do this? And you kind of, in this moment, as he stabs her and you see the sadness, you kind of have this moment where for the first time for me, I was like, wait, Thanos actually cares. Like, that, wait, is this who Thanos is? Is this where they're going with Thanos? That he's not just this cruel one-note killer guy that wants power. There's, like, why is he so sad about this or not understanding why she did this? And so then it reveals that he's using the reality stone and kind of warps reality, phases things back, shows what's really going on. have a bit of fight kind of breaks out. They're trying to take him out. They lose. He grabs Gamora and does his effect thing. Drax collapses to the ground. Mantis collapses to the ground. And earlier in the movie, Gamora had told Star-Lord, you have to kill me. You have to kill me if he grabs me because I know something. And immediately go, oh, she knows where the Soul Stone is. She's the one with the information. And so he finally promises, and then at least this funny moment with Drax standing there and doing very Drax, I'm invisible. I'm moving so slow you can't see me. Great little sequence. Anyway, back to Thanos has got Gamora. Star-Lord's pointing a gun, and so he has to make this choice, and we're going to get into these choices in just a second. Actually, we'll talk about it right after this. And so he's holding her, shoots the gun. Thanos has changed the gun. Bubbles just come out of it, and he's like, I like you. And he leaves. And this is one of these things that kind of happens. Once again, you realize, wait, Thanos isn't just mercilessly killing people. He doesn't want to just kill people. He's not really interested in just killing people randomly. He has a plan. If you get in the way of his plan, if you think you'll mess with this plan, you're going bye-bye. And he doesn't care if he kills you in the plan because it's too important to him. But he's not just randomly killing people like the monster that people think he is. He's a different type of monster that's in its own way far, far, far more just terrifying. Let's go back to Doctor Strange in our spaceship. Tony Stark and Spider-Man team up to try and take out, I don't know what the character's name was, but he was my favorite of the children of Thanos, just the creepy guy that spoke real proper and, was doing creepy, Squidward, he's this creepy, weird guy that I loved what they did with that guy and how confident he was in his servitude of Thanos and everything that he was doing. So they fly down to start fighting him. He's doing all his power stuff. So they're not really much of a match for him, but they got a plan. Or excuse me, they don't really fight him. They pretty quickly just go straight to their little plan deal, don't they? And so then Iron Man shoots the side out. They do this Aliens thing. The movie Aliens making a second appearance. Shoot the wall out, which is the end actually kind of both Alien and Aliens. Guy flies out into space, and this is the third time it seems like characters are underpowered because they could beat the crap out of him. There's all these different things where he could move things with his hands, but he can't go catch himself with the ship or something. There wasn't something he could do. This third kind of power thing that seems pretty off to me. But so they send him out into space, and Tony has saved Doctor Strange, and Doctor Strange is unfazed still like, oh, you tried to throw me into space? And so they bicker back and forth on what they need to do, and they decide, let's go to Titan. We're going to take it to him because this isn't going to end. He's going to come to us. We might as well throw him off by going to him. So they set out for Titan. Now let's take our journey back, and we'll join up with Thanos and Gamora. And this is where the story just kind of goes off in this direction. A bunch of us, I don't think we thought it was going here. I was not expecting kind of this very emotional Thanos story where you just see him as this very sad person, and not in sad, pathetic sense. Sad as in he's very sad as over to what he's experienced, and he firmly believes he could have saved people if only they'd listened to him. And now he has that same belief that's just been fortified into his soul. I can save half the galaxy, but it will cost half the galaxy, and I need to do this because it is the right thing to do. Firmly believes in his insane plan. And so you just see all these back and forth interactions with Gamora that just add so much layer to both of them. Just change your perspective on both characters. Gamora, we've already spent a lot of time with her, but so much more depth character now that we're actually seeing what's going on with her and Thanos and who Thanos is, and seeing who these other children of Thanos, how they played out, what they look like, and what she might have looked like just 5 years before all of this. So depth to that, and then we walk in, we see Nebula's there. Oh, and just this moment where he's kind of grilling her on all sorts of stuff throughout the movie and what happened and trying to teach her and all these strengths that she has. And then he's like, but you're not a good liar. You know, you did find it. You found the Soul Stone and you're lying to me, and you can't lie because I didn't teach you to lie. Great lines, great powerful stuff. So he reveals through Nebula that she knows where it is, starts torturing Nebula. And so she must make a choice in the movie, and she chooses to save Nebula by giving in to Thanos' demand. This is a recurring theme. I'm going to talk about it right after Thanos' choice. Throughout the whole movie, they're making people make hard choices. and major theme throughout the movie: sacrifice, consequences. So we'll get to that. So then Thanos and Gamora go off to this planet, walk up this hill, and then the twist that definitely I don't hear anyone throw this one out there. Red Skull is the one seated there. We saw him as him being sucked out into space at the end of First Avenger in his quest for Infinity Stones and all that fun stuff. We didn't know what happened to him. There was a lot of speculation that he was still alive somewhere out there in outer space because we didn't see him actually die. And when you're sucked out in the sort of space, what does that mean? Now we know that he was cursed to guard this Infinity Stone as people seek it. So we get to the top of the hill, and it has this very biblical type moment of having to sacrifice the child, where it's to get this thing, to get what you want, that you're going to use to save the people, you have to sacrifice the thing you love the most. Gamora thinks, you don't love anything, you're going to lose, because she's never understood him. And just in and of it, just like the subtlety of this moment where she does not, like, she's calling him out as not loving anything and does not realize she's misunderstood him this whole time. Like, no, he actually does love me. He actually believes all this stuff that he's saying. Like, the insanity isn't for some lack of love. It's not just cruelty. He believes every single thing that he's saying about why he's trying to get these stones and everything he's trying to do. And I mean, he just starts, like, he's crying, and Red Skull's like telling her, that's for you. He said for you. He's not, like, he's devastated as to what he has to do. And he picks up Gamora, throws her over the edge, and kills her. And this is one of the things that I picked up, like, when I was first watching it the first time. I thought, hey, it feels a little bit like this is getting a little bit repetitious and cliche, that Thanos tortures people and then good guys give something up. And because there's a lot of torture in the movie. Doctor Strange, Thor, Nebula, maybe some others in it, all tortured, trying to get them to give something up. But you start to realize this is like a theme throughout the movie. Loki has to choose between saving Thor or keeping the Tesseract hidden. Star-Lord has to choose whether or not to sacrifice Gamora. He chooses to sacrifice her, but Thanos still wins anyway. Gamora chooses to save Nebula and give up the Soul Stone. Thanos chooses to sacrifice Gamora to gain the Soul Stone. Doctor Strange, later on in the movie, he chooses to save Tony and give up the Time Stone. Now, he knows future things, so he can he gets a little bit off the hook, but there's that element going on. And then at the end of the movie, Scarlet Witch chooses to sacrifice Vision to stop Thanos, even though Thanos is able to do that. That's a lot. Like, that's like a movie that has a clear idea of what we're trying to do, that we're going to make our characters make hard choices. Even our bad guy, even the villain, has to make the hardest choice that he has to make in pursuit of what he values. And that's conflict. That's drama. That's like when a movie understands its characters and how to put them through the ringer to make you feel satisfaction at the end of the movie. Have you actually feel something as you get there? That's what this movie was doing throughout the whole thing. Consequences, stakes, choices. This is what great storytelling is made out of. That's why for me, I put this one as my favorite MCU movie. Seeing it a second time, that holds true. And rewatching it, just being able to notice what they were doing, putting the pieces in place, all the choices that these characters had to make. Oh, I didn't even mention it. Tony Stark, it's less obvious what he does, but right at the beginning of the movie, as soon as Doctor Strange pulls up and, hey, I need your help, Tony does not hesitate. He chooses to leave Pepper and follow Doctor Strange. He doesn't fully know how bad that is just yet. As soon as there's rumblings, he chooses to go into action, and as soon as he sees the spaceship, he chooses to go up into it, and he gets this phone call from her, and he does not want to go into space. He doesn't want to die. He doesn't want to leave her. He doesn't want to do to her what he's about to do to her. But he chooses, I have to be a hero. I have to do what I can do because this could be the universe right here. And it's just fascinating the way they built all that into the movie. As characters have to make choices, and they have to make hard choices. I was trying to map it out. Like, I was wondering if the way the movie would play out at the end of it, watching it the second time, is the characters that would make the choice to sacrifice what they value most. Did they survive at the end? It doesn't do that. I was wondering, is that what they're doing? It's not. And so it doesn't seem like there was any specific payoff as to whether you gained or lost throughout that, but just an interesting thing to consider as you go through that. So the movie continues on. We go into essentially our final battles are about to start happening. Guardians of the Galaxy show up on Titan, get some amazing dialogue in situations as Chris Pratt's making a plan with Tony Stark. Drax is tuning out. He's like, I wasn't even paying attention. You get some fun Footloose jokes where Star-Lord's like, is that Footloose still the greatest movie ever? And Peter Parker's like, that was never the greatest movie ever. And then you just see on there's like two different moments where Tony Stark just pauses. And it's like they were thinking to themselves, we need a new annoyed Robert Downey Jr. gif and meme so that people can share a new one on the internet. And then they give us like his most epic pause, like it just pauses and you're like, ha, ha, ha. And then it keeps going and it keeps getting a little bit funnier because of how long they hold on his reaction. So I loved all of that fun stuff. From there, we will go into our big climaxes begin on Wakanda. Team Captain America shows up there almost immediately. They put Vision in to get his stone pulled out of his head, and the army shows up and they charge the wall. They realize that these creature monster things can squeeze through the wall, and even though most of them die trying to do this or get limbs cut off, some of them get through, and because it's a big circle around the whole base, that the army is in one place, and so all they have to do is run around the sides, and they come in and they can get where they're trying to go. So the decision is made. They're going to open up the front of it and let them in and have kind of this bottleneck where they start to duke it out. So they some of them getting through, and you get these cool shots of Falcon and War Machine flying over, dropping bombs and shooting the ones that are in there, and kind of them getting their kind of place in this battle that I really like, seeing them kind of get to do that fun stuff. As they're setting things up, you get to see Bruce Banner in the Hulkbuster suit. That was a great twist. That was a great direction to do things. And the trailers lied to us explicitly. They blatantly lied about the end of this movie, and there's a shot of Steve Rogers running forward in a forest and Hulk's in the background and everyone's kind of this shot's not in the movie and Hulk's not in the movie, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay that they lied to me in this movie because it's not even deleted scenes. They wanted us to be surprised by the end and surprised by what happened, and I think they did without compromising the movie. I think they were deceptive in little elements of what they showed us, and I'm actually totally okay with that. I don't think I should be. I feel like I'm giving them an exception, but I am. They get the point. So bottleneck opens up, armies charges forward, and you get this great moment that these two characters, Black Panther and Steve Rogers, just run way ahead of everybody, right to the front lines, and go to battle, taking guys out. War breaks out, and throughout this whole thing, everybody gets a little moment to shine. Everybody gets them some moment. We get this shot when the girl, daughter of Thanos, kind of it charges in and is about to take out Scarlet Witch. She's like, "You're gonna die alone," and then it like cuts back. And you got Black Widow then and Okoye. I believe I mispronounced it in my previous video. Okoye, I think I could be terribly wrong on this one. They backs up and all of them, our ladies are right there, start battling it out with her. But huge wars breaking out, and they start to lose. And you start seeing Hulkbusters getting torn to pieces. I can't take much more of this. Black Panther's getting the beat down. And then you just see a ray of light shoot straight down. And you're like, what? What is that? And then it has a little bit tricklings of our Asgardian type color scheme. And then all these guys fly down. And then you just see Thor walking with his new hammer and Rocket Raccoon and Groot standing there right with him, and just war breaks out in this just great heroic type moment. Sorry about that. And war continues onward, and we get more great moments where you get, I guess he's White Wolf now. Bucky picks up Rocket Raccoon as if he's a gun in his hand and sticks out his arm and starts spinning around, and the two of them are just taking guys out, spinning in a circle, and then Rocket Raccoon, hey, is that how much for that gun? As he's seeing Earth firearms for the first time and wants one of these machine guns. And he's like, how about for your arm? In such a Rocket type moment, we get this amazing moment then where Steve Rogers and Thor reuniting. He goes, oh, haircut. Yeah, we got a haircut. I see that you're trying to copy my beard. Just these little amazing moments sprinkled in throughout the entire thing. And battles waging on, and they start to make some big comebacks here. Now we go back to Titan. Thanos shows up, and I didn't quite catch it, but I never fully understood, why is Thanos there by himself? Like, Thanos shows up without anyone else's help, and his ship's close enough that Nebula is able to show up, or maybe she brought a ship. It doesn't quite explain exactly how that details, but Thanos shows up right where they are at, just to have a boss fight with them. Because he just shows up, that's all he does, he fights them. Or, I mean, maybe he's going there. I don't know why he's going by himself. So maybe if you understood that a little bit better than I did, tell me about it. He's going there because he's supposed to meet up with the one guy to get the time stone. Well, where's all those other people? So battle breaks out, and you get to see all these characters going everything. They've got a plan, and they're just trying to distract him as they're just got this guy that's very powerful, but he's just one guy. So he has to use his powers kind of the way creatures think, which is linear. And so they're trying to outthink him and outmove him and try and fly all around, all the fun stuff with that. When you've got a sorcerer that can do a bunch of cool stuff, and then a very agile Spider-Man that can do a bunch of amazing things with that. And that's where the battle got real cool, is where you've got Spider-Man jumping through these portals that Doctor Strange is kind of flying around. Get Chris Pratt doing the finger to Thanos as he jumps through a portal. Oh, while Iron Man's just launching missiles at him and everything. And as soon as they're able to kind of catch him just long enough to wrap him up, Mantis drops on him and starts kind of psyching him out a little bit. And through this, it is revealed that he has killed Gamora. And so Chris Pratt, Star-Lord, starts to lose it a little bit and won't calm down. And I'm not quite sure how I feel quite about how all this played out. They've established throughout the movies he is immature. He's an emotionally immature person that would do stupid things. That would be impulsive. We saw that in Guardians Volume 2. We saw that in the first movie. This movie establishes him as kind of insecure, especially around Thor. And so there's several elements to where they kind of established it. At the same time, it's like such a level of selfishness and thoughtlessness in a moment where it's like, if you can just wait for 30 seconds, we pull the glove off, then you can punch him all you want. It's what seemed a little bit like a stretch. And if they'd found a way maybe to have like Drax get in on that too, because we've already established Drax also, we've established Drax is crazy hot-headed even in this movie. And so if they'd maybe found a way that Drax got in on a little bit more too, I think that could have been a little bit tighter, and I would have bought it a little bit more the way it plays out. But so he loses his temper. He just starts wailing on Thanos' face, hits Mantis' hand, so she jerks back just long enough for Thanos to kind of wiggle out of it. Kind of pissed off now, throws a moon, all this war kind of breaks out, kind of chaos. Our team, their plan is disassembled because of what just happened, and him kind of going all out with the moon thing. And so Spider-Man's trying to rescue everybody. Tony's giving it, or Doctor Strange is giving it his all, every spell that he's got. He's dividing himself into different people. He's mirror zoning. He's every single move he's got to try and save the day. Still gets knocked to the ground. Tony gives it everything that he's got, even though he goes into it pretty well knowing, you can just see on his face, like, I can't defeat this guy, but I've got to last as long as I can, do whatever I can in case these other guys kind of come after it. And especially as you're watching the movie knowing there's a good chance he dies. Like, this is building towards a moment where this could be bad. And just everything he has, his armor, even the way they did his armor with its nanos that can rebuild itself a little bit now. So his helmet gets blown off and it starts rebuilding, and then something else gets knocked off. So he's trying to rebuild that. And so he's slowly like losing everything he has to protect his humanity from this guy that one punch can knock his humanity, just destroy him, and kind of pulls through it. One final last ditch effort, pulls a spike out to try and spike him. Thanos catches it, impales him. And you're in this moment where like, hey, he's dying. We are losing Tony Stark right now. And you fully believe this can happen. And they establish even earlier in the movie that Doctor Strange will let him die. He said, I will let you die. I'm protecting the stone with everything that I have. And then, got a little bit off here. Forgot a very important thing. While they're establishing their plan to battle Thanos, Doctor Strange kind of goes out into wig out mode and starts flying around. What we learn is going on, he looks at 14 million different possibilities, and there's just one where they're victorious. Now, this is what I'm wondering. When he's in Doctor Strange mode, is there like a counter running, or is it, we're supposed to believe that he actually counted up to 14 million while doing this? I don't know how that worked, that he knows exactly how many realities he saw, but he saw 14 million realities. There's one where they win, and so he's seeing the future, but he can't spoil it for anybody. I saw a meme where someone goes, Doctor Strange saw the ending of this movie 14 million times and he didn't spoil it. And I was like, no, he didn't. He saw 14 million different endings to this movie and he didn't spoil it. Two different things. So anyway, we get back to it. Tony's been impaled. Doctor Strange is defeated. He goes, wait, I'll give you the stone. And he hands it over to Thanos. Thanos now has 5 of the Infinity Stones. And Tony's just devastated. Just devastated. He's like, what? Why would you do that? Like, why didn't you let me die? Just does not understand the decision that was just made, that he would give it up to why would you sacrifice the stone, give him the power and instead of letting me die? Just does not understand it. Doctor Strange goes, now we're in the end game. And you go, oh, he wasn't making the choice that everyone else made. He wasn't making the choice that Loki made or that Gamora made. This is a guy that has seen the future. And he just made a choice that is like, I'm going to trust that this option's going to play out where I let Thanos have this. Okay. Thanos gets the stone, leaves, heads down to Earth. He's on Wakanda. Final battle starts to break out. Hulkbuster charges at him, throws Hulkbuster into a wall. All these characters come out. He's just tossing them left and right. Captain America runs in front of him. And so even the shot where you see Captain America holding the fist, like in the movie itself, or in the trailer, it looks like, well, Captain America's holding back Thanos' hand. And as you see it in the movie, it's more like Thanos is like watching slowly. It's like, I'm about to be victorious. And wow, I respect that this man is putting this much into this. But like at the same time, he's no threat. Punches him. I thought he was like, when he punched him, I just thought, I think he just killed Captain America with that move. Walks over. Scarlet Witch desperately attempts to destroy the Soul Stone. Scientist is trying to block him, shoot lasers at him, pulls it out, destroys it just in time for Thanos to walk up. He congratulates her just a little bit on what she's done. And then he turns back time, pulls the stone out of his head. He's acquired all 5 or 6 of the stones in his gauntlet. He's standing there, and out of nowhere, you get this last moment of Thor comes out and stabs him straight through the heart, gives him a great, I told you I'd kill you moment. And then Thanos just goes, you should have gone for the head, and snaps. And it cuts to this vision. First time I watched this, what is this vision? What's going on? Like, I don't fully understand what I'm seeing right now. And then, Gamora goes, did you do it? Yes, I did it, and it cost me everything to do it. And kind of it visualizes the choice that he's making. It goes back to him snapping. Thor's like, what did you do? Thanos jumps through a portal, gets out of there, and then Bucky, it's Steve. And then you see Black Panther run over to someone and just turns to dust. Scarlet Witch turns to dust. Mantis, Drax, we see Star-Lord goes to dust. And then the one where my wife got mad at me watching it when I saw it with her, Peter Parker starts to die. And he's like, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. He's just begging for his life in Tony's arms as he turns to dust and dies. And you just have this moment of like, wait, Marvel just let the bad guy 100% win. Like he defeated them. He made sacrifices. It cost him everything. He had a goal. He fought for it. He planned. And he was victorious in the end. And it goes to this final shot of him kind of walking out of a hut, sitting down and watching the sunset, which earlier in the movie he said to Tony, like, when I'm finished with this, I'll have all 6 stones. I'll snap my fingers. Half the universe will be dead. And then that night, I'll sit down healing and I'll watch the sunset. And the movie just ends on that. Boom. And I've had a bunch of debates with people on the ending of it, and not too many debates with people, but a few where like they hated it, like feels like half a movie, feels like, anticlimactic, it just kind of ends. And I honestly don't understand any of that. I mean, I understand if you don't like it. If you just said, I hated the ending, it was too sad, I hate it when bad guys win, I want the next movie now. We know they're coming back, so I'm annoyed that they killed characters off that we know. Okay, fair enough. I don't agree. But I understand. Like, I hear what you're saying and I go, that's fair. I'm not going to try and convince you. But when people say, it's half a movie, what's the other half? What's the other half of the movie? Like, this is the story. The story of this movie was they're trying to collect these 6 stones. Or Thanos is trying to collect these 6 stones and the Avengers are trying to stop him. By the end of the movie, Thanos has a goal. He's gone through conflict and transformation to acquire it, and he achieves his goal. The story of Thanos acquiring the stones, which is the story of this movie, has happened. And the story of the Avengers, whoever their desires to stop him, they go through conflict, transformation to get to the end of the movie. They do not acquire what they want. The story is complete. That's a complete everything. This is not an incomplete story. This is the story. Period. It's a 100% complete. We know future things happen. We know more is going to happen. We know there's a sequel coming. But that doesn't mean this story that they told us today doesn't have a beginning, middle, and end. It does. What's the rest of the story? If you're one of these people that's half a movie, what's the other half of the movie? Because if you say the other half of the movie is, the defeat of Thanos. But that's a second story. This story is about the acquiring the Infinity Stones. And we have a beginning, middle, and end to that story. Now he has them. That's a new story. How do they defeat him? So, or like I said, if you're mad because it was the bad guy won, fair enough. But that's not, it's an incomplete story. So I just don't understand that particular argument. Not that you have to like the ending of the movie, which I loved, but I just need to understand kind of where you're coming from on some of these ones. So real quick, let's talk about who's to blame. And I thought this was really interesting on who's to blame that Thanos got the stones. Because in the most obvious sense, Star-Lord. Star-Lord is the one whose immaturity and lack of ability to control himself led him to free Thanos up so that he was able to do things that, he won. Because what Star-Lord did. And that's true. But if you go all the way back to the opening scene of the movie, Loki's to blame. If Loki had just not freed up the stone and let himself die, maybe Thor or maybe Thanos would have tortured him, or maybe something else would have happened. But that's not the way it decided to play out. Or perhaps if you could blame Gamora, because Gamora could have just not told him. Gamora, you just kill Nebula, kill me. Well, I'm not going to tell you. There's so many options that could have happened, but she didn't. So is Gamora to blame? Well, in a lot of ways, Gamora is to blame. Is Doctor Strange to blame? Doctor Strange very knowingly handed over his stone to save the life of a guy that he doesn't like. But he's got an end game, so I don't think I'm going to blame him. I think he knows what's going to happen, and that's going to it can be interesting where all that ties out. So I think it's one of those ones that I just did a really good job of. They made a movie where you can look at exact moments in the movie where characters could have made different choices and stopped the movie from happening, but because of their character flaws, because of their value sets, because of who they are, that Loki really does care about Thor. Gamora really does care about Nebula. Because Doctor Strange really does, I guess, have confidence in Tony Stark's ability to save the day in light of the knowledge that he has. Because Star-Lord really is broken and does care about Gamora and is mature. Because of these faults, that's why Thanos won. And Thanos, his fault is he's a sociopath, but in a different sense, he's a character that has great conviction. He's true to who he's trying to be and doesn't make mistakes along the way. And therefore, at the end, he was victorious. So there you have it. There's my discussion of the good things. Talk about some bad things real quick. I touched on almost all these throughout it. It feels a little bit, if you watch through the movie, excuse me, because there's so many characters, it feels like almost everyone is shortchanged except Thanos and Gamora. Like if you want a bunch of Iron Man, you get some good Iron Man. You don't get a lot of great Iron Man. You don't get a lot of the Guardians. You don't a bunch of people are like, oh, Thor's like a main character in this one. Is he? He's a main character in the opening scene, and then he has some nice scenes with Rocket Raccoon, and he gets his axe. But he doesn't do a whole lot in the movie until he shows up at the end. So it's not like he actually got that much to do in the movie. He just had a very emotional arc because it was so dramatic and traumatic to see what he's going through, and he does a great job acting it. And so besides Gamora and Thanos, it feels like everyone got a little bit shortchanged because of the size of the cast of the movie. And because of that, this is the best Gamora we've ever seen, and Thanos was great. But at the same time, everyone got shortchanged. The CGI, besides Thanos, I thought was not as good as it should be. Especially there's a bunch of shots of Bruce Banner's head in the Hulkbuster suit that I just thought looked terrible. Every time they cut to the suit with his head on top of it, I was like, that doesn't look right. That looks weird. I don't like what they're doing with that. But other things as well, just kind of not great CGI compared to everything. I talked about this in my main review, kind of the story flow, that the movie feels like it wants to establish these characters and give them a great sequence. And then we go through that and we goes, oh yeah, we need to tell you about these characters over here and we'll give them a great sequence. Then we got to go over here and give these characters a great sequence. Oh yeah, we better go back to Iron Man. And it's been 30 minutes since we've seen Iron Man. And then we go see what he's doing and have a great sequence with Iron Man. And then we go back to the Guardians and a great sequence with the other Guardians. And then we go, oh yeah, what about Wakanda? We better get back to... And so it just, all these big gaps that it felt a bit much, both to the size of the cast and people feeling shortchanged and the flow of the story. You're just feeling the weight of the size of this cast. It had a consequence, and that was, it's a little bit clunky how it played out, and it felt like most people got shortchanged. Next one, power levels just felt off. Just, whether you're talking about the children of Thanos in one scene just wailing on super powerful Avengers, and then the next scene they're getting beat up by a 5'3" woman with no superpowers. Like, if you're just kind of going back and forth between things like that it was very moment to moment. People were as powerful as they needed to be for that scene to have the dynamic that they wanted to have. It didn't feel like consistently a character was as powerful as they always were. And then one that I didn't notice on first viewing, but became quite a bit more obvious on the second one. There's some very big contrivances in the plot of just the pieces fitting together because they have to fit together. The big one, I'll just use this one example because it's the only one that I could remember as I was writing my notes, and I've been talking way longer than I wanted. I thought this video was going to be 20 minutes. I'm an idiot. I'm not great at determining how long I'm going to talk about things. But so one of the just gigantic contrivances in this, the movie starts off with a distress signal from the Asgardians. Ships destroyed, signal sent out into space. Conveniently, the Guardians just happen to be the people that pick it up. Now, movies are allowed a couple contrivances. That's the actual inherent nature of a story. Something happens that wouldn't normally happen, and a story gets thrown into play. So every movie is allowed at least one contrivance that something uncommon happens. It seems a bit improbable with all of space that it's the Guardians that would be the one to pick this up. But we'll grant this one. So they pick up Thor, and they're talking with Thor, and they're like, we better go get Thanos. We got to go get a hammer, debating. Half of them decide to go to Thanos. Gamora decides to go with team. Let's go get Thanos. They show up to battle Thanos because Thor showed up to tell them Thanos was doing his thing. The reason they are there is because they found Thor, because he sent the signal. They show up, get in a fight. Gamora fights him, thinks she beats him. She doesn't beat him. So they have this interaction where she says, you knew I would come. He's like, I was counting on it. Counting on it? Counting on it. Wait, what? And so he's counting on it because he needs her to find the Soul Stone. And so then this was very important that she showed up so that he could kidnap her. So his plan was, I will blow up the Asgardian ship so that they'll send a distress signal so that Gamora will hear it and come and rescue Thor, and she will go with not Thor, but the other one. Like, this feels a little bit like screenwriter magic. If you got a reason that this makes sense to me, tell me. But it feels like we got a little bit of a plot hole, and there's a few things like that where they had to like cheat the logic a little bit, and characters end up places that were part of Thanos' plan or part of something else that doesn't actually make sense, that Thanos couldn't plan that element out. Anyway, those are my issues with the movie. I loved it. I thought it was great. And my big fear is that the second part will come out and undo the great things about this movie. The big one that comes to mind that's not exactly direct comparison, but similar, would be Matrix Reloaded and Matrix Revolutions. So for me, Matrix Reloaded was more of mixed positive. I was like, I dig this. I'm not crazy, but I'm not quite sure where I fall. There's some stuff I'm not crazy about, but there's enough things I loved about it. And it hasn't aged well. A lot of the CGI on it looks terrible now. It didn't look as terrible back then. You could notice that there was something was off with it, but what they were doing was so incredible at the time that you forgave the CGI. Now it just looks terrible. Then the second one comes out, and that movie ends with kind of big twist reveal. Let's turn the whole world upside down in the last 15 minutes, somewhat similar to the way this movie does. And then the next movie happens, and what they did with that destroy. Like, it almost made me not like The Matrix at all. Like, the whole thing, I was like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. I hate what you did with this. And it definitely just destroyed the second movie. The second movie went from mixed positive to like just negative. Like, I don't want to watch this movie. I don't want to go on that journey again. And it took like 10 years before I even got back into the original and was like, no, the first one's amazing. And that's what I think this could do. That they do something funky enough, stupid enough, weird enough that it could ruin it. Or take that all that negativity and they pull it off. They've got a great plan. And this is like the best 1-2 punch, bookends this incredible legacy of the first 11 years of the MCU. We send off our original Avengers. Steve Rogers dies. Tony Stark gets off to go off married. And Doctor Strange, Black Panther, Spider-Man brought back to life and get off to go off on their next adventure. There's a bunch of things I'm very excited about what they could do in this next one. So there you have it. There's my very long take on Avengers Infinity War. I loved it. I had many things to say about it, and maybe I went too long. I don't know. If you enjoy videos like this where I go full blown, I'm going to talk everything in the world about a movie, let me know down below in the comment section. I don't normally do them like this, so your feedback would be useful as to whether you love or hate this particular take on things. And if you're new to my channel, please consider clicking that subscribe button. I do movie reviews, TV reviews, ranking videos. Normally movie reviews aren't nearly this long, but this one deserved a long conversation. But the key thing is I don't want to just talk about movies. I want to talk about movies with you. So please join me down in the comment section. Let's have a lively discussion. And as always, thank you for watching.